Welcome to the Self-Healing Communities podcast, where we give you a deeper understanding of the neurobiology of trauma, healing, and human resilience. This podcast is put on by the Self-Healing Communities of the Greater Michiana region. The Self-Healing Communities of Greater Michiana's mission is to nurture personal and community well-being through the neuroscience of human resilience and the celebration of our collective strengths. This is episode 3, where we will be discussing species expectant experiences. We will have Dr. Nancy Michael join us as our guest. Stay tuned. Today we have Dr. Nancy Michael, the Director of Undergraduate Studies for Neuroscience and Behavior in the College of Science for the University of Notre Dame. And we will be diving into what the heck species expectant experiences are. Well, first, hi, Dr. Michael.
Hi, Karina. How are you?
Good. In your classes to community members, you talk a lot about species expectant experiences. Kind of a tongue twister.
Indeed.
Word phrase. Our last Self-Healing Communities coordinator, Kate, she liked to simplify it by saying expectations of the human brain, or we can say biological expectations. Can you please just explain to us what the heck these species expected experiences are?
In lots of talks, right, we talk about, like, to Kate's point, right, the brain actually expects stuff, right? So if we have a vision of how we want grown-ups to act and behave and be, right, in terms of wellness, right, we want them to be reliable, show up to work, be compassionate, your long list of that those capacities don't just emerge with age, right? That those capacities develop kind of over time based on the brain that's developed over time.
Yeah.
A lot of times the way that we expect grown-ups to be is because species expectant experiences have been met along the way. So what is that, right? So species human expectants, right? We expect certain things. As humans, we expect certain interactions with our environment over time, right? So the literature talks about these not only as species expectant experiences, but we more often talk about them as critical periods of development, right? Critical periods of development are periods during nervous system development or physiological development where the nervous system is actually primed and waiting, right, for stuff from the environment. So the visual system has been really well studied in the field of neuroscience, visual system development, and how permutations and manipulations of the visual world can completely reorganize the brain, therefore reorganizing and kind of changing the way that an animal or a species visually perceives and understands the world and is able to, right? Yeah. So critical periods are very specific periods in time where the nervous system is expectant of environmental experience, and the depth and richness and diversity of this experience kind of lays that kind of foundational brain architecture for the rest of the animal's life or the rest of the individual's life, right? They're sequential. They don't all happen luckily, they don't all happen at the same time. Some of them are longer than others. So vision tends to be an earlier and shorter one, where motor tends to be a longer one. Language tends to be a longer one. So you think about having the opportunity to be raised in a bilingual home, right? Like what a blessing for those little neural circuits. Their auditory critical period has the opportunity to have a great diversity of words and sounds spoken regularly, so that their nervous system is able to make sense of those without effort. So as we see, so language is a pretty good example, as those critical periods come to a close, that we don't ever isolate humans from language, but our ability to study these things comes with the acquisition of a second language, right? That the later we get exposed to a second language, the more intention and effort, the harder it is to learn, where younger neural circuits, they're just ready, man. They're expectant. The species is expectant of the experiences, the environmental experiences that are going to be really important for its survival.
You just gave really good examples of vision, motor, language, but what does this have to do with self-healing communities, and what does this have to do for caring for each other?
So one of the most foundational critical periods, right, and luckily it is longer as well, is this neat? I mean, like, it is a biological imperative for
Mhm.
attachment, right? If you think about what can an infant do? That's actually a question. What can an infant do?
It can cry.
There you go, right? So like, so the most foundational species expectant experience is to have a responsive caregiver. Because in the absence of responsive care, we die. Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no way around that, right?
Yeah.
And so we have a very, very long childhood in which we are dependent upon care.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can see, right, from a critical period, right,
Yeah.
that's a really long critical period. The ways in which we are cared for, right, also then provide us access to the types of sounds we hear and the types of visual experience we have and the types of, touch and taste and motor stuff that we get to do, right? So this caregiver is really a conduit to all of these other capacities, which is terrifying, right? For any caregiver, it's really, really scary. But that we are dependent, and that caregivers' physiology is the example that we use as tiny humans for our physiology.
Wow.
So yeah, right. It's really crazy. So like, when caregiver is stressed, we are obligated as tiny humans to feel that heart rate, blood pressure, endocrine response. Like, our bodies mirror that.
Yeah, we're
right?
synced up.
Totally. That's a great word. We're absolutely in synchrony. And so the weird thing is, or like the thing that we don't talk about that very much at all, right? This kind of biological imperative to like depend on our caregivers, right? We all know, we don't like articulate it in like really the power and the gravity that it deserves. That relationships are foundational for survival.
Yeah.
Right. And that the way in which those relationships are interactive are giant moderators then of how our brains and nervous systems grow. We are dependent for the first decade or so, when we don't grow to be independent then, right? So you use the word synchrony, right? We're in sync, right? No matter how old we get, our physiology, our nervous systems still looks to others for this synchrony idea, right? And so the closer in relationship we are, we can still see the same kind of synchrony that we do in young children and caregivers, right? Where we can sync up heart rate, we can sync up endocrine systems in kind of cohesive classroom and learning environments. We can sync up brain waves.
Oh my goodness.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, I think if we take a step back, so like, first of all, it's super cool, but if we take a step back and think about our own experiences, we all can think, right? Like, we all know what it's like to feel connected with somebody.
Yeah.
Right. And the ways in which that ability to feel safe and connected and relaxed can change, right? Changes our posture, our heart rate, our mood, right? And all of those things are reflected in endocrine and neural functions.
Yeah.
Right. Versus situations in which we know that we're not, right? Not seen, not validated, not included, not whatever. Right. And we also have that unsynchronous feeling, right? That like indifference is one version of not being in synchrony, right? But then we have like the actual like exclusionary response of a nervous system, of a physiological system, in situations of damage. And so that synchrony component is the expectation, right? For that is where our systems are their most well, when we can increase, when we can increase. So back to species expectant experiences, it's easy to see dependence when we're children. As we age, right, the more time we spend in synchrony with each other, in like this, it's not an upstate, but it's in this neurobiological safety state. Yeah. Right. That is an expectation throughout our entire lifetimes. Wow. Right. And so again, it helps understand or unpack this, like indifference. It's not like getting punched in the face, but it's not this expectation of synchrony between. It's not our systems. Best state of living. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, does that? Yeah, that answers it. And I guess a follow-up question is, okay, so now we recognize that we have these species expectant experiences across the lifetime, but more, it seems to be that during childhood, that is a very critical stage for receiving love, care, safety. And so for listeners
now looking at their own stories of like, oh shoot, I didn't get that. Sure, mom and dad were speaking a language to me at the house. It wasn't like I was completely isolated from people, or I didn't get like I was taught how to speak English. Okay, that's one expected experiences. But if mom and dad didn't care for me, what is that? Is there hope for me now that I'm an adult and I didn't get those needs met in this critical stage of development?
Yes. I mean, that's the cool. That's why I love neuroscience so much, right? As we get older with anything, it takes more intention, attention, and effort.
Yeah.
Right. But like if there wasn't hope, therapy would never work. You know what I mean? Like there are absolutely, it takes a tremendous amount of courage, right? That like those of us that come from high ACEs backgrounds, right? That like part of the survival strategy is often like trying to ignore the hurt inside.
Yeah.
Right. So to be a grown-up and to be able to have the courage to be like, man, that really hurt. Right. That it's okay to be sad for the 8-year-old or the 5-year-old. And many of us carry the memory of experiences in our bodies without even being able to articulate it. This declarative memory process that I remember in middle school, I was super, super depressed and anxious. For many of us, those experiences happen at such young ages, or those experiences are so painful that a defensive strategy of the nervous system is to like block them.
Wow.
Like, let's not activate those. Right. And so we can carry those hurts in our bodies without being able to consciously articulate what they are, but they show up, right? Like we can feel it.
Yeah.
But yeah, courage is another kind of really critical factor, but there's always hope.
Okay.
Right. The nervous system is plastic across a lifespan.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Right. I know. Yeah. And I think that's right. We talked about it, I think, in maybe the last episode in terms of this general community capacity thing, right? That like the more being vulnerable, at least in the United States in 2023, right? The word vulnerability can like light off alarm bells inside of people's bodies. And it can be really, really scary for lots of different reasons. Right.
Yeah.
But that's
necessary.
Yeah. Like how do we create environments in which part of our synchrony is being able to be honest about who we are and what's going on. Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. So today we explored species expectant experiences, or if that is a tongue twister for you, just expectations of the human brain.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Please make sure you're taking care of yourself and others today, and we will see you in the next episode. Just a reminder that this is sponsored by the self-healing communities of the Greater Michiana region. And if you have any more questions or want more information, please follow us at SHC Michiana or email us at selfhealingcommunities@gmail.com. And we would like to say thank you to Fabrice for providing the intro and outro music. Thank you.